This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for Thursday, November 21st. I'm Mark Martin. Today, Democrats take on each other on health care, taxes, and more in their presidential debate and say impeaching President Trump is more important than politics. And in Washington, the Democrats' public impeachment hearings against President Trump wrap up with both Democrats and Republicans claiming victory in yesterday's important hearings. Israel inches ever closer to an unprecedented third election in less than a year as the two leading parties still can't form a new government. We're going to hear from Jerusalem about what could happen. And you've heard about the deep state, but is it real or just a myth? A former CIA analyst gives us his take. Those stories and more today on Newswatch. We begin with the Democratic presidential candidates facing off in Atlanta in their fifth debate. They clashed over health care, taxes, and foreign policy. But before the candidates could get to the issues, they weighed in on the testimony in the Democrats' impeachment hearing Wednesday. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy brings us the story.
The candidates may differ on the issues, but all agree on the impeachment inquiry. They say impeachment is bigger than politics, and each wants to be the one to take President Trump down.
We cannot simply be consumed by Donald Trump, because if we are, you know what? We're going to lose the election.
Among a crowded stage of 10 Democratic presidential candidates, it was President Trump that united them.
Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. That's pretty clear.
The candidates focused on a post-Trump America as 2020 hopefuls sparred over who deserves to challenge him next year.
It is a criminal enterprise engaged in by the president, from what we heard today, the vice president, the secretary of state, and the chief of staff.
We have to establish the principle, no one is above the law.
Some even want to change the law when it comes to health care.
The reason I insist on Medicare for all who want it as the strategy to deliver on that goal we share of universal health care is that is something that, as a governing strategy, we can unify the American people around.
The first week of my administration, we will introduce Medicare for all.
Senator Sanders and Warren want Medicare for all, which has been criticized by Republicans and even some Democrats as too expensive and unrealistic. But Biden says that plan won't pass the House and Senate, and he would rather build on Obamacare.
The fact is that right now, the vast majority of Democrats do not support Medicare for all. It couldn't pass the United States Senate right now.
Biden raised eyebrows and drew some laughter from the audience with his answer to a question about domestic violence.
No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger other than in self-defense, and that's rarely ever occurs. And so we have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It will be a big, no, I really mean it. It's a gigantic issue.
Now, this could be the last national debate for some candidates as rules are tightening, and only 6 of the 10 have qualified for the stage in late December. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
In Washington, the final 2 witnesses are set to appear today in the public hearings in the Democrats' push to impeach President Trump. David Holmes, a political counselor at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, and Fiona Hill of the National Security Council. They come after the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, testified Wednesday, which left both Democrats and Republicans claiming victory. Republicans say his account proves President Trump was not involved in any quid pro quo, while Democrats argue the exact opposite. Chairman Adam Schiff claims it was a very important moment for the impeachment inquiry.
It was the conditioning of official acts or something of great value to the president, these political investigations. It goes right to the heart of the issue of bribery, as well as other potential high crimes or misdemeanors. But we also have heard for the first time that knowledge of this scheme was pervasive.
While Republicans point to Sondland agreeing that the president never told him about any preconditions for aid to be released. Sondland says he thought a quid pro quo existed, but it did not involve holding up aid.
As I testified previously, Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing the investigations of the 2016 election, DNC server, and Burisma.
Sondland also said the president told him he did not want a quid pro quo from the president of Ukraine. Coming up, Israel is facing a titanic political struggle as neither of the two leading parties has been able to form a new government after 2 elections. Now they may be headed for a 3rd election in less than a year. We'll hear from Jerusalem about what could happen next when we come back.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back. Israel moved one step closer to unprecedented 3rd elections in 1 year as the deadline passed overnight for blue and white leader Benny Gantz to form a government. The outcome was no surprise after Yisrael Beiteinu leader Avigdor Lieberman earlier refused to endorse either Gantz or Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin tried to push the sides toward compromise, but in the end his efforts failed. Gantz refused to form a government with Netanyahu as long as the indictment on corruption charges was hanging over his head. And Netanyahu would not abandon the religious parties in order to sit with Lieberman. There is still one option left, however. If any one of the 120 members can gain the backing of 61 of his fellow parliamentarians, he can back anyone in the Knesset to form a new government, including Netanyahu or Gantz. If that fails, Israel will head to elections probably in March. The surprise U.S. decision this week to recognize Israeli settlements in the West Bank as legal is having a major impact in the region. As CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell tells us, Israelis are rejoicing as they see this land as part of their biblical inheritance.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu celebrated the U.S. move by visiting Alon Shvut, a settlement about 15 miles from Jerusalem in the heart of Gush Etzion.
The Trump administration fixed a historic wrong, stood by truth and justice. I think it is a great day for the state of Israel and an achievement that will remain for decades.
I'm standing here in Gush Etzion, one of Israel's largest settlement blocks, known in the world as the West Bank, but in the Bible it's called Judea, part of Israel's biblical heartland.
Judea and Samaria are terms that were used in the Bible. We're talking about actual land that the Jewish people lived in, and the stories of Isaiah and the stories of Jeremiah, these stories happened in these lands.
Gush Etzion Regional Council head Shlomo Nieman says while Israelis don't need the world to agree on their biblical right to be here, he's happy with the historic decision.
For the number one player in the international arena to add this opinion, that, from our standpoint, is the right opinion, that Jewish settlement in the state of Israel, the land of Israel, in Judea and Samaria, is not against international law. This thing is a revolution.
Jews established farming communities here before Israel became a state in 1948, but were driven out during the War of Independence. After the victorious 67 Six-Day War, they returned to rebuild. Today, some 750,000 Israelis live in the region Palestinians want to establish their own state. Not everyone agrees with the new U.S. position.
Resolution 2334 states that Israeli settlement activities are a flagrant violation under international law.
The land of Palestine, and especially the lands within the 1967 border, is a pure Palestinian land. The occupation of this land is illegal.
But if Mayor Oded Revivi believes settlements actually foster peace.
President Trump is trying to bring us back to the time of the leaders who understood that the settlements, the Jewish towns and cities in Judea and Samaria, are not the obstacle for peace. They're rather the anchors which can create an example of how Jews and Arabs can live one alongside the other.
Shalev Kayam, CFO of the Gush Etzion Regional Council, goes even further.
The words of Isaiah of coming back in the vineyards and coming back in the land actually being uplifted is something that we've been waiting for thousands of years, and that's happening in our eyes. It's part of the redemption of the world.
Chris Mitchell, Alon Shfut, Gush Etzion, Judea.
With us now from Jerusalem is CBN News senior editor John Wagi. John, how might the dramatic U.S. policy announcement affect the political chaos in Israel's government?
Well, Mark, it's interesting because the first man to seize on the importance of the Pompeo-Trump announcement was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And while a lot of media people here in Jerusalem now are getting ready to rewrite again Netanyahu's political obituary, he has seized on an issue that he sees is really moving forward among the Israeli public. I think there's growing support for a big sea change in how even Israelis, as well as the rest of the world, sees the people who live in these parts of Judea and Samaria. We have Europe going the opposite direction and ruling that products have to be labeled, that are from the West Bank. But here in Israel, it's becoming more and more accepted that Israelis should support even annexation of the West Bank, which is what Prime Minister Netanyahu has called for. So if anybody is going to seize on the issue now in this 21 days of uncertainty, it might be the Prime Minister himself, although there are others who are going to enter this free-for-all and try and dethrone Netanyahu in the coming 21 days.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, John. Who would you say is best positioned to pull off a miracle and prevent a third election? Who do you think?
Well, I would say the Prime Minister himself. What's happening today is there's one newspaper, Yediot Achronot, who's saying that Netanyahu's, the Attorney General Mandelblit, is going to call for Netanyahu's indictment today. Now, that's the kind of media spin that we've been hearing for the better part of 3 years now. Indictments are coming, and indictments don't come. It is widely accepted that the indictment of Netanyahu, if it is to come, would come early next week. And if that happens, that, of course, creates more chaos in this 21-day period that Israel's never been through. I would say Netanyahu still is probably the one who has the best chance of forming a government, although no one really has a good chance. It's notable that Gideon Sa'ar, who is the number 5 on the Likud list, said today at the Jerusalem Post diplomatic conference that he thinks he will be the one to lead the next unity government from Likud. And so this is kind of a peeling off a little bit of the Likud support and the support of the religious parties that Netanyahu has had, which is really amazing that they locked into that support from him all the way through these first 2 rounds where Netanyahu had a chance to form a government and failed, and Benny Gantz had a chance to form a government and failed.
How is the government, John, functioning with attacks from, you got the attacks from the south in Gaza and the north in Syria? Talk about that.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. Yaakov Katz, who's the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, said, who would have thought that a week ago we had 400 rockets falling from Gaza, and just a couple days ago, rockets falling from Syria, and now we're all talking politics. I mean, that's how crazy it is here right now, where the subject matter shifts from day to day and sometimes hour to hour. So the attacks are definitely an important component. Israel has a new defense minister, Naftali Bennett. The Likud leader who spoke at this conference today, Sa'ar, said that he's afraid Israel has to go in and militarily dismantle Hamas in the Gaza Strip. He got applause for saying that. A lot of leaders have been saying things similar to that, but when the rubber meets the road, it's really, really tough to commit Israeli lives going into an urban warfare situation. The Iran situation is more difficult. Israel expects that there will be a retaliation for Israel's past strikes, and so they're expecting that could come at any time. But the North is prepared militarily to handle those with the Iron Dome and other defense capabilities. So, you know, more of the same, but all in all, chaos with a little bit of stability in Jerusalem.
All right, CBN News senior editor John Woggy reporting from Jerusalem. Thank you, John, for your insights on this very important topic. Still ahead, you've heard the phrase the deep state, but what does that mean, and is it real? We're going to hear what a former CIA analyst says when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
If you follow politics, you've heard about people talking about the deep state, but is it a fantasy or the reality in our nation's capital? At a recent dinner in Washington for the conservative legal group, the Federalist Society, Attorney General William Barr said a, quote, avalanche of subpoenas and constant attempts to derail Trump administration appointments only served to incapacitate the White House. He stopped short of calling it a political coup, however, but he suggested forces are engaged in a war to cripple an elected government by any means necessary. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, former CIA analyst Michael Schur agrees with Barr, and he says an American insurrection is now underway.
It may be a coup, but it seems to me it's more the case that it's an insurrection. The federal government, at least the executive branch, is being denied the ability to execute its responsibilities, whether it's here in Washington or in places like Seattle and Portland, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, where under the Supremacy Clause, Washington is very clearly responsible for immigration. There is much more disruption, much more insurrection in this country than Lincoln faced until the Confederates fired at Fort Sumter. And so it's really a staggering position to be again in this position 100 or almost 160 years later.
Yes, I mean, to have the Attorney General of the United States make these type of comments, he must be gravely concerned. Now, he says there's a resistance that has a strategy and is using every tool available to sabotage the executive branch. I'm assuming this includes impeachment. So what do you think of the hearings in the House?
What we've heard so far in these sessions has been, I'm very offended because the president didn't listen to my advice. And certainly in ignorance, both in the Congress and in the testimony. When the Constitution says bribery, the founders were talking about the president accepting bribes.
Do you think there was any bribery of Ukraine on the part of this president? How about Joe and Hunter Biden and Burisma Holdings?
Well, you know, so that's the point, I think. If the president of the United States could grab something out of the Ukraine in return for our money that was really worth something to the United States, I think the American people as a whole would be very happy with that. And if it happened to involve Biden and his son, and they were actually criminally involved, the president would be praised, I would think, for preventing someone like him from having a chance to get into the White House. When I say him, I mean Joe Biden. So this has been the way it's been since the American presidency was formed. And what they're doing is, as Mr. Barr said, trying to tear down the institutions of this country. They're not the loyal opposition. They are an infestation of globalists who want to deny nationality to the United States and blend us in with the rest of the world.
The IG's FISA report may be released publicly any day now. So, Michael, what do you expect it'll reveal?
Well, if America is to be, again, a land of rule of law and equality before the law, there'll be suggested indictments for John Brennan, Susan Rice, Clapper, all those FBI characters, Comey and McCabe and Strzok and the rest of them. And also, I would think, clearly Obama is involved in this up to his neck, because clearly this was run from the Oval Office by Barack Obama in an attempt to defeat candidate Trump and an ongoing threat through insurrection or coup. You know, it's up to you to choose the word, since the president was inaugurated.
Now, this all sounds like conspiracy.
Clearly the planning on how to take care of it, the insurance policy, all of that stuff, that's clearly a conspiracy. Sometimes there are conspiracies, sir.
Well, finally, I know you worked at the CIA, so how dangerous is it for the country to have intelligence officials and agents involved in politics, taking sides? And I thought we were all on America's side, or we should be anyway.
You know, sir, I worked there almost 25 years, and I have to say I must have been as naive as the deuce, because I never could believe this, except this could have happened. But clearly, the CIA is in this up to its neck. And John Brennan, who I knew most of my career, I tried to get to talk to the Senate committee before they were going to give him that position. And they didn't want to talk. And so I've written a couple pieces on the blog. John Brennan has only been in this business for himself since he was a young man and came in as a communist sympathizer. I suspect that the agency at this point is facing a very difficult problem, because I would want to, if I was the chief of the CIA at this moment, to get rid of everybody that was employed under the auspices of the two Obama administrations. Because clearly the people who were sent there not to defend the United States, but to tear it down from inside. Mr. President, you have to clean this house. The bureaucracy runs this country, and it's running it according to the dictates of George Soros and other people who are in league with that kind of people. So that kind of person. So I think the CIA needs to be drastically reformed, primarily in the elimination of anyone who came to work there under the Obama administrations.
Well, 3 years in, I guess it's never too late. Okay, Dr. Michael Schur, thank you for sharing your insights.
You're very kind. Thank you.
And you can hear more from Dr. Michael Schur, as well as Gary Lane's commentary about a new Coca-Cola commercial featuring transgenders that has been met by outrage on social media. It's all on Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, we're going to take you to Hong Kong, where CBN Superbook is a blessing not just for kids, but adults as well.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
CBN Superbook isn't just for young people. In Hong Kong, CBN hosts Superbook meetups for older folks, as you can see there. The senior citizens meet weekly to watch an episode and learn about the Bible. Many are learning the scriptures for the first time. That's awesome. After each episode, they reinforce the teaching with Bible trivia. They also get physical exercise by singing and dancing to the salvation poem. They need to do that here in the U.S. It's never too late to accept Christ. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.